The agonizing pain of missing the DC by just one. It was a high roll, but simply not high enough. I'd rather have eaten a handful of D4s. Insert this new mechanic. Let him succeed anyway. Yay! And also a horrible complication happens and something else goes terribly wrong. There are lots of game systems out there that have mechanics for degrees of success. Ways for players to partially succeed or to succeed but at a cost. Now, while D&D is not built with this in mind, there's a lot of ways to introduce this kind of concept, and I've been toying with one that I particularly like. Just to be clear up front, this is not a hard mechanic. It's no strict rule, it's just kind of a loose, based-on-the-moment thing I do. When a player fails an ability check or saving throw by just a couple points, I sometimes offer them a choice. They can either accept that failure and take things as they come, or choose to succeed at the test they're attempting anyway, regardless of what they rolled, but it's at the cost of incurring some unintended additional challenge. To provide an example, let's say you've built an encounter that takes place in a large ballroom, nobles and men to guard them speckling the dance floor. Above, sneaking around the rafters, is one of your players. They're jumping from beam to beam to try and get across the room unseen so they can assassinate the twisted Baron Ralloin Kane. They come to an especially wide gap they need to cross. To bridge it, they choose to jump onto a chandelier, call for an acrobatics check, and they just barely miss it. Insert the devil's offer. Would you like to fail and fall crashing into the ballroom floor down below like the dice have chosen? Or will you exchange that consequence for something else? I don't tell them what it is, mind you. I never tell them what the other consequence is. They just have to roll the metaphorical dice on whatever I've cooked up. Maybe instead of falling themselves, they make it onto the chandelier, but it's a shaky landing, and the poison vial they had on their belt falls off and tumbles all the way below. With a shatter on the ground, the tool they were originally going to use to kill the Baron is gone, and now they need to come up with a plan B. Alternatively, maybe when they jump on the chandelier, all of its fasteners break, and the whole thing's about to come down. They have to immediately make another acrobatics check, and maybe a few following stealth checks to make sure that they're not noticed after the whole thing plummets and crashes into a few partygoers. Everybody's a bit on edge, the guards are looking around for what caused that, and it's just a little bit harder to actually reach your target. The idea here is very similar to failing forward. That is to say, making sure that one failed skill check does not lead to a total mission failure. Allowing the story to evolve based on the dice outcome, regardless of what that outcome is. One skill check should not decide the fate of an entire encounter, usually, but rather push the dial one notch in that direction. Successes lead the party closer to their goals, while failures make things harder and add in more obstacles. Much like a skill challenge, the fate of the encounter isn't decided until that dial gets pushed all the way in one direction. Once again, this is not a hard mechanic. I don't actually track dials while I'm running encounters, but this devil's offer, we'll call it for the sake of communication, can be a nice way to push that dial towards failure, or to create a unique lateral path for the adventure to go down. This is not something that I offer with every single barely missed check. It's just something that I do when I come up with a fun idea. It can be a useful tool for those times when you see a die's outcome and you don't quite know where to take the story. I try to only call for skill checks when I can visualize both results, pass and fail. But, unfortunately, I am a flawed man like any other, and sometimes it's not until the result is smacking me in the face that I realize I have no idea how to describe this. At least, not in a way that keeps the game moving forward and feeling fun. The Devil's Offer can help by steering us in a different direction. Yeah, I wasn't able to come up with a way to make falling into the crowd fun and interesting, but I could come up with those other two ideas that keep up the momentum. Also, it provides an opportunity for some situations that might be otherwise difficult to come across if you're following a pass-fail system too strictly. Unintended consequences can be a very fun environment to play in. You can make some very unexpectedly tense situations or surprising challenges to have to overcome. But that can be difficult to execute while following the social contract. If a player wants to jump across a big gap, there's a pretty obvious outcome they'll be expecting if they fail. They know what they're putting up for ante. However, if I don't make them fall when they fail an acrobatics check, but I do break their poison vial, they could easily feel cheated because They weren't risking the poison vial. That wasn't a part of the unspoken agreement. It wasn't an implied possibility. When somebody takes the devil's offer, though, we've all agreed to change the bet. Whatever we put in originally gets swiped off the table, and everybody knows, everyone is aware that something else is going to happen. And that's a lovely part of this too. It's an offer. It's the player's decision whether or not they want to take it and go down that alternate path. You're just showing them the fork in the road. It's another chance for player choice, another chance to share narrative control and add more collaborative elements into the game. Sure, they don't know what that alternative road actually is, but that's kind of half the fun. I've actually yet to have a player not accept the offer, and I think pure curiosity is half the reason why. That's the end of the video. I don't really know how to segue out of this one. I don't have anything more to say, but hopefully this can inspire you to get creative and find ways to add in degrees of success to your game and have some fun with that mechanic. If you want to support the channel, you can always subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff you already know about, and you can also donate if you're feeling extra generous. It is never expected, always appreciated.